Hi, ladies and gentlemen. As I was thinking about how to best prepare you for this section of our ACT training, I started thinking about it. I said, well, you know what? If I could sort of convey what I'm thinking about when I start working with a new client doing ACT training and consulting, if I can give you some insights into the way I think, then I think that would lay a good groundwork or a foundation for the rest of the training in this course or this section. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the things I think about. So when I first start working with a client, typically what I'll do is I'll have an online meeting with them and I'll ask them to have ACT up on the screen so that I can take a look at it. Now, when I look at it, I have some first impressions. And those first impressions are, frankly, the layout. When I look at ACT, have they changed the layout in any way, shape, or form? Have they customized it? And when I talk about a layout, this is one of the standard layouts that comes with ACT, and this is another one of the layouts that is standard and comes with ACT. So when I look at their ACT and the way they use it, I observe the layout. If they have not customized it, that tells me something. If they have customized it, I try to observe what they've done and the way they've customized it to try to understand the way they work. Many times, they've customized it with so much stuff, it doesn't work for them because there's just too much stuff. Sometimes they've customized it but haven't quite done it in the best manner, and that's what I try to advise them on. I try to look and see first how many contacts they have. Right now in this database, I have over 5,000 contacts in this database. How many contacts do they have? I also will take a look by clicking on Help, and I'll look at About ACT to see what version they have. So when I'm looking at the version, it gives me an understanding. I also want to know how long have they been using ACT? How many users do they have using ACT? How long have they been in business? If, for some reason, I'm working with an employee of a company, one of the questions that is really important to ask and understand is, does the boss use ACT software? In other words, is the boss on board? If the boss isn't on board, that tells me something. I also will look at this, and as I'm talking to them, try to understand if their issues are related to ACT software, or maybe it's just an organizational issue. Many years ago, I attended a luncheon, and again, this was a long time ago, and one of the things the speaker said that I never forgot is they said, a lot of times people think computers help you stay more organized. He said, if you're disorganized before you get a computer or before you get software in this day and age, you're going to be disorganized after you get software. So a lot of times one of the things I do with my clients is I've determined whether or not their issues with the software are really software related or if they're organizationally related. Are they an organized type person? Sometimes we have people that try to get so much into ACT, it's just frankly a waste of time because they organize for things they might not ever use. And I try to talk to them about that. So we look at that information. Next, when I'm looking and observing the screen, one of the things that I look at first is the ID status field. You're going to see from my training, I think this is an incredibly important field. Also, over here, these are what are called system fields that you can record information in ACT, the latest activities. Do they use these fields? Do they understand the impact and the way they can use these fields in the future? I'll ask them, how many clients do you have? Can you find them? How many prospects do you have in this database? Can you find those contacts? So I start looking at like the last email field, the last meeting, the last reach, the last edit date field. All of this gives me a feeling for the way they're using ACT. I will also talk to them about whether or not they're using notes and histories. Notes are down below where they can take notes on a client, or they can create a history for a client. How do they use that? Do they use Microsoft Outlook to work and go along with ACT? Because I've always said ACT is a great contact manager, a lousy email program, where Outlook is just the opposite. It's a lousy contact manager, but a great email program. What kind of email address do they have? Do they have an email address with a company domain, or are they using Gmail or AOL? What kind of email address? How do they relate to that? Do they use something called groups in ACT? If they use groups, That's a sign. Do they use the calendar in ACT? How do they back up their data in ACT? Do they back up their data? So these are all little things that I try to pick up on when I first start working with a contact. And then towards the end, some of the things I'll ask him are as follows. What do you want to accomplish with ACT? What are your business goals? What are you trying to do? What is it you do every Monday when you come into the office? In other words, what is your game plan? What do you do every single Monday? And last, what keeps you awake at night? Are there contacts that are slipping through the cracks? How can I make it so you can go to bed at night and recognize the fact that you're doing things as well as you can and people are not slipping through the cracks, whether they be clients or prospects? And at the end of the day, that is really my goal. I want to make sure no one is forgotten about. And the reality is, regardless of whether you have 100 contacts in ACT or 100,000, you can stay on top of that. And that's what this section is all about, giving you a roadmap and a game plan for working with those contacts so no one ever slips through the cracks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for indulging me as I try to expound or explain what I'd like to go through in this section of our training. On occasion, come back to this, and then I think you'll see all my training is leading up to that idea or what I've just described. Thank you so very much. You have a great day. Bye now.